The klaxon doesn't ask. It doesn't explain. It simply sounds. And in every barracks, every ready room, every flight line on 3 continents, the same thing happens. Men and women stop what they're doing and they move. This is what combat readiness looks like from the inside. Not from a press briefing, not from a news ticker. From the airfield, from the rifle, from the ground. What you're about to see is the anatomy of a rapid response military deployment. From the moment the order drops to the moment boots are on open ground, weapons loaded, and a position exists where nothing existed 12 hours before. In the hours before this deployment began, the world had just crossed a threshold that military planners had wargamed for decades, but hoped would never arrive. Iran had launched a massive, coordinated ballistic missile barrage against Israel, striking multiple cities and military installations simultaneously. It was not a warning. It was an act of war. The United States responded within hours. American cruise missiles hit an Iranian naval vessel in the Persian Gulf, sending it to the bottom. Follow-up strikes targeted oil storage facilities along the Iranian coastline. Fuel tanks erupted into fireballs visible for miles. Alongside the strikes, a full combat mobilization order was issued across all branches. Not a readiness elevation, a mobilization order. Every available unit received the signal, move to combat readiness immediately. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what a mobilization order actually means, and why the next 12 hours were a masterclass in American military logistics. The U.S. military's power doesn't just come from its technology or its firepower. It comes from its ability to put lethal, organized, self-sufficient combat power almost anywhere on Earth in an extraordinarily short window of time. Tonight, that capability was about to be tested. On the airfield, the response is already visible before most people have even processed the news. 2 CH-53 Sea Stallion heavy-lift helicopters sit on the flight line with their rotors already turning. The CH-53 is not a subtle aircraft. At over 30,000 pounds empty weight, with a main rotor spanning over 79 feet, it is one of the heaviest helicopters in the Western military inventory. When one of these machines comes to life, the ground vibrates. Ground crew stands clear of the rotor wash, the invisible wall of wind and turbulence that will shred anything not secured and pinned down. In the ready room, the helicopter pilots go through their gear with the practiced calm of men who have done this 1,000 times. Flight suits, survival vests, sidearms, helmets, each item checked, not assumed. The survival vest alone tells a story. It carries emergency radio beacons, signaling mirrors, survival knives, and a personal locator beacon. These are not theatrical props. They exist because sometimes helicopters go down in places where nobody is coming to help you unless you can tell them exactly where you are. Near the helicopters, Marines are already assembled in 2 groups, one for each aircraft. Full combat loads, body armor, helmets, rifles, magazines, grenades, radios, water, rations. On command, the first group begins boarding the lead CH-53 through the side personnel door. There is no ceremony, no fanfare. One by one, they step up and disappear inside. At the same airfield, a CH-47 Chinook is being loaded with a different mission entirely. The Chinook, the twin-rotor workhorse of military aviation, has been doing this job since Vietnam. Its tandem rotor design gives it a unique capability. It can carry enormous payloads both inside the cargo hold and suspended beneath the fuselage on external sling loads. Tonight, it's doing both at once. Marines file in through the rear ramp, taking their seats in the cargo hold. Underneath the helicopter, ground crew attaches an artillery piece to the external cargo sling, a towed howitzer that the Chinook will carry suspended beneath the fuselage. The M777 howitzer weighs nearly 4,000 pounds and has a range of up to 24 kilometers with standard rounds, nearly 30 kilometers with rocket-assisted projectiles. It can be broken down and transported, or, as tonight demonstrates, slung beneath the helicopter and delivered directly into a position that no road reaches. The rigging crew works quickly but without shortcuts. Every hook, every shackle, every connection point is physically inspected and cleared before the load is approved. The penalty for a rigging failure at altitude is not an inconvenience, it is a howitzer falling from the sky. The rigging is checked, the load is secure, and the helicopter lifts with the gun hanging below. It flies low over the terrain,
treetop-level tactics that reduce radar signature and make the aircraft harder to track from the ground. On approach, the Chinook descends, and the crew chief guides the pilots down until the howitzer touches ground. The sling is released, and the gun sits in the dirt. The helicopter moves to a nearby landing spot, sets down, and the Marines walk off the ramp. They immediately move to the artillery piece, unpack the ammunition that came with them, and begin setting up the firing position. Trails spread, spades dug in, sights mounted, rounds stacked, ready. It has been less than 2 hours since the mobilization order. As evening approaches, 2 more helicopters arrive at a separate forward position carrying additional Marines. The aircraft land in an open area, flat ground, no structures, no cover. This is not a prepared base. There is no perimeter fence, no guard tower, no watchtower, no motor pool, no mess hall. This is a raw position in the field, a grid coordinate on a map that has been designated as the place where these men will spend the next unknown number of hours, days, possibly weeks, establishing American combat presence. It is getting dark fast. The Marines establish a defensive perimeter. Crew-served weapons are positioned at key points covering the most likely approach routes. Watch rotations are assigned. Some dig shallow fighting positions. Others lay out their gear on the ground. Sleeping bags, ponchos, ammunition laid out within arm's reach. They eat cold rations and drink water from canteens. The temperature drops. There are no warm meals here, no showers, no lights, no tents. What they have is what they carried, what the helicopters brought, and each other. Through the night, helicopters make multiple supply runs to the position. They come in blacked out. No lights, no radio calls that can be intercepted, using night vision to navigate. Each flight brings in more equipment. Crates of ammunition, additional anti-tank weapons, the kind that can stop a main battle tank at range, mortar tubes and rounds, cases of radio batteries, medical supplies organized by trauma priority, tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, chest seals, airway kits. On one of the later flights, lightweight tactical buggies are rolled off the rear ramp of the Chinook. Fast, low profile, able to carry 4 men and their gear across terrain that would stop a conventional vehicle. The vehicles are driven off the helicopter and moved to concealed positions under camouflage netting. Communication specialists set up satellite antennas and establish contact with the command post. This is the nervous system of the position. Without secure communications, a forward operating base is just a group of armed men in the dark with no coordination, no intelligence updates, and no ability to call for reinforcement or fire support. With comms established, the position is now fully integrated into the command network. Every report, every observation, every sighting from this piece of ground goes up the chain. Every order, every intelligence update, every fire mission coordinate comes down. By the time the sun starts to come up, the position is transformed. From an empty patch of ground to a functioning forward operating base. Vehicles, weapons, supplies, and comms. Humble by the standards of a permanent installation, but lethal, organized, ready. At first light, the Marines begin moving out from the camp. They split into squads and head toward their assigned sectors. The first task is reconnaissance, systematic observation of the terrain they may soon have to fight across. Teams move through the terrain slowly and deliberately, observing the landscape, identifying natural cover, marking ridgelines and dead ground that could conceal enemy movement. They map out fields of fire and potential ambush positions. Everything is recorded and reported back to the command element at the camp. Dead ground, terrain that can't be observed or covered by fire from a given position, is the infantry soldier's constant concern. An enemy who knows your dead ground can move toward you without you knowing until they're close enough to engage. Finding it first is a survival skill. Sniper teams move to elevated positions overlooking the surrounding area. They unpack their rifles, set up bipods, and lay out their equipment. Spotting scopes, rangefinders, wind meters, logbooks. 1 man behind the rifle, 1 behind the spotting scope. They begin methodical observation of the terrain, scanning sector by sector, noting distances to landmarks, identifying potential targets, logging any movement they see. A well-positioned sniper team doesn't just kill. It is eyes. It is intelligence. It extends the command element's awareness far beyond the perimeter. The infantry squads begin running through combat drills. Not because they don't know how. They do. They've done each of these movements hundreds of times. They run them again because in combat, skill that requires conscious thought gets you killed. Only skill that has become reflex keeps you alive. Bounding movement across open ground. 1 fire team moves while the other provides cover, watching, ready to fire. Then they switch, back and forth across exposed terrain, low and fast, minimizing time in the open. Building and room clearing procedures. Stack up on the door, breach, enter, clear corners, call out threats. The choreography of violence, rehearsed until it flows without hesitation. They practice moving through low terrain using wadis and ditches to stay hidden from observation. Every movement is done at a crouch or crawl. Speed and silence are the priority. The squad leaders watch each run through, correct mistakes, and make them do it again. Immediate action drills. What to do when they take fire from the front. Peel left or right to break contact. What to do when they take fire from a flank. Immediately assault through. What to do in an ambush. The most terrifying scenario, because ambush means someone was watching and chose the moment. Casualty evacuation procedures. How to drag a wounded man to cover while maintaining return fire. This drill has a name, CASVAC. It has a sequence, and the sequence is practiced until the body can execute it even when the mind is processing fear. Machine gun teams set up their weapons, identify primary and alternate firing positions, and practice displacing between them under simulated pressure. A machine gun that stays in one place too long becomes a target. A machine gun team that knows how to move, covering each other as they leap to the next position, is a force multiplier that can hold a line far beyond its numbers. Once the training exercises are finished, the Marines pull back to the camp. Weapons are cleaned, equipment is checked, positions are maintained. And they wait.